Hello and welcome to the fifth season. That's right, the fifth season of Next Generation's First Generation. I'm your host, Sascha Shouties, and with me I have my co-host, Patrick Delmore.
Yay!
Yay! I know, right? This is a really big deal. So the long-anticipated Redemption Part 2 is what we're covering today. So this should be about September 23rd for you if we did our math right. And I tell you, Patrick, I am really looking forward to season 5.
Me too.
My freaking goodness. A lot of good episodes in this season. But before we can get into those wonderful episodes and the one bad one, I'm talking at you when the walls fell. Oh,
Sascha
man.
when the walls fell.
Right? That right there is got to be, it tests me, sir. It tests me. But for the purpose of today's exercise, we'll be watching the second part of Redemption, which surprisingly is a Data episode, and you didn't even know it. So, with that being said, go ahead and cue up your viewing devices. We'll give you the countdown. And are you ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, and play.
Previously on Star Trek: The Next Generation, or last time on Star Trek, I guess.
Yep.
It's going to be a Kling-on civil war. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Popeye O'Reilly. Can you imagine if he was like the superintendent at a school? You know, like the guy that when discipline falls apart, your principal calls him to come in and just stare at you.
Oh, man. Yep. I could see that happening. Maybe a character on the Simpsons. Like
that was one of my favorite jokes on The Simpsons. If they thankfully didn't run off a cliff, at least not while I was watching it. It was like, we're gonna get some order back here in this school, Leopold.
Oh man. Okay, so just for some fun little things, the final draft of this episode was written in July 1991, July 1st.
So well after the first part had aired.
That means that when it aired, they had no idea how it was going to end.
Yeah, which is typical for the end of the thing. I mean, what's his name? Michael Dorn might have decided not to come back, and Denise Crosby might have said, "Well, yeah, let's just keep teasing that character and put her back in the shadows." And now really, the conclusion.
It's really nice that they brought her back. Oh, this right here, this scene is so it's so cinematically filmed. I feel like I'm watching a movie more than a.
I have a feeling that for the restoration, they redid some stuff. Now I don't know that for a fact because like I said, have not been watching the DVDs. I actually need to buy a new physical media player because I do love my physical media.
Okay. So here is a weird situation where Worf suggests retreat, and I think this is the only time where I've known him to do that. And now here's the weird part. So Kern isn't the captain of this ship, but Worf is the older brother. And so when Worf makes a suggestion, does his standing in the family have any impact into the decision in the battle?
I don't know.
Because he basically, Kern said, get back to your station, and that was the end of it.
You have to maintain discipline on board a ship. But yeah, you might be right. He may be able to, go into another room and be like, now, Kern, Big Brother says do it this way.
Kern's about to get real slobbery. I can't stand this on television when you just see spit hanging on somebody's lip. Same thing with Battlestar Galactica when Adama was all crying because his buddy was a Cylon. Oh, it's just, I can't look. So here, this is flying into the sun, causing an eruption, killing 2 ships, and what do you know? They do the same thing in Deep Space Nine.
Nitpicker's Guide, you could never get that close to the sun.
Not at all. Well, not unless they had some Ferengi technology on their side. Oh, well. So the Enterprise is at Starbase.
he has decided to get a fleet together because he thinks that that the Romulans are involved. This is important. So he's got 2 admirals in his ready room. Doesn't look like, with all the fighting, that they had the budget to show the inside of the starbase.
It's a nice representation here to have a black female with an African accent in a position of leadership. This is a first for this show here, like the next gen. It's nice that they got away from the white admiral, and she's not evil, which is a plus.
Well, the last admiral we saw was a black guy.
Oh, Mr. Mustache and bald head.
He's actually in a couple episodes, and we'd seen in the Star Trek movies that a whole lot of the brass were of different ethnicities and stuff. And that's the thing, is that the big thing with Gene Roddenberry's vision is, racism does not exist on Earth anymore. To the degree that Lincoln uses a racial slur with Uhura that one time, and she has absolutely no idea what that is. She doesn't know that racial slurs are a thing that exists.
So, Miss Admiral here, Shanteeth is her name. Shanti. Okay. Shantithi. Thi. Oh, whatever. Anyway, she was also part of the USS Pegasus experiment. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that character's got some history. So, illegal cloaking technology. Maybe she's a little evil after all. Those admirals, those tricky
Seems
folks.
like all of the admirals are secretly evil.
Well, I'm glad that Janeway is an admiral because she's evil. Fran Bennett is the name of that admiral, by the way. So she has been around for a long time. She's 83 now. Born 1987. Wow. Right?
We forgot, speaking of people that are really old, we forgot to mention that the actor that played Professor Galen, Norman Lloyd, finally did pass away at age 106.
Wow.
Yeah, we had been talking about how he was still holding on, but he has departed this earth.
Wow.
Yep.
Holy freaking smokes. They're all growing up and growing old. Oh.
All of the principal cast of this show is still alive, though. So Majel Barrett. And I guess she would count as principal cast. She was always there as the voice of the computer.
Yes, very true.
And this is how we know this is the season that Roddenberry died during, is because they have that new logo. And this is the only season that has that logo.
When did Roddenberry die? Do we have it? Obviously, there's
1991. Sometime in 91. So when this season was airing.
So this here, let's see, what are we in? We are in September, right?
Yes.
So this is the last of the Klingons. It has been confirmed that, yes, they have told the Klingon political story. So after this, we don't see a lot of this anymore. I was coming from an interview by Ronald Moore, I believe. I was doing some reading on this. It opens up the door, though, for the Romulans. We have the Ark of Sela. We have the issue where the Klingons, remember that colony of captured Klingon children?
Yep.
That Worf liberated? So, yeah. So here we are. Picard's building a fleet, and he needs a fleet of ships to detect Romulan interference. And when he did the pitch to the Admiral, he says, well, we happen to have a way where we might be able to detect cloaked ships. And my first question is, why didn't Starfleet have this bright idea earlier? It just happened to come to LaForge. And they're telling this to the Admiral who did work in illegal cloaking technology for Star Trek, or for Starfleet. Coincidence?
Well, that last hadn't been established yet, but here's the thing. Who's the big threat right now? They don't say it. The Borg is the big threat. They're building the Defiant. They're building Voyager and other ship styles like that are specifically made to fight the Borg. The Romulans have only been back for 4 years, and other than the cloaking device, people weren't even thinking about the Romulans. I think the Enterprise is the ship that's usually closest to the neutral zone.
Okay.
The big Romulan incident up till this point. Now I want to say they didn't even know that the Romulans were that involved with what happened with Geordi.
No, that was just kind of an
they knew
afterthought.
The Klingons had to do. They knew the Klingons had something to do with it, but the big Romulan thing has been them transporting that admiral pretending to be a Vulcan over there.
Mm-hmm.
So all of Starfleet is working on ships that can fight the Borg. And it's party time before the war.
And now Kern actually answers a question that I'd brought up in the previous episode. Was Kern explains that the capital city, not the homeworld, but the capital city is neutral territory, and this is why enemies can sit together and drink. So this is one of those rare occurrences, kind of like the Christmas ceasefires, where it's assumed, since we're fighting for this prize, we can't actually occupy it.
Makes me just want to hear that song from The Simpsons, Capital City. There's a wacky place I know called Capital City.
Yeah, that is right. So good old Gene Roddenberry dies a month and a day from this airing. So he passed away October 24th, 91.
The great bird of the galaxy.
That's right. That should actually put us Ensign Rowe or Silicon Avatar with Crystal and Entity comes back, or Disaster, like in the game. Those are all really great episodes.
Really great episodes
that all were kind of influenced by the second second generation of the next generation, if that makes any sense. Because right about now, Gene has kind of removed himself from the show process because of his ailing health. He used to be there all the time, and he's kind of falling
and his
back.
Influence was not necessarily a positive one for anybody. The most Gene Roddenberry feeling season of this is season 1, which I actually like. There are many things I like about season 1, but I probably, unless I have kids or something, or if my nephew gets into Star Trek, probably I'm not going to watch season 1 again. I think I'm over it.
You don't really need season 1 to tell the story of the next generation.
Other than setting up Q and what Q can do, and
Wesley.
Yeah, and some Wesley stuff. Yeah.
So Lyrsa and Bator, they're cluing in on Worf now, realizing that hey, he's got a vulnerability. He's not as social as other Klingons. I don't know if you noticed there when Mr. Kern was talking to the enemy captain, saying, "Hey, this was the guy commanding the squad that almost killed us yesterday." That guy was in another episode where Data was stranded on an alien planet with radioactive metal, and it was making everybody sick. And that Klingon, that Klingon captain was the blacksmith in that episode.
So we glossed over this whole setup for Data is finally getting command of a ship, which my dad was really excited about when the episode aired. And this episode, when it came out, we had gone, my family and I remember I'm 9 at this time, had gone to visit some friends of my mom's. And I was like, oh man, I gotta be able to watch the episode like when it comes on. And I did, or I watched some of it because I just did not care. I thought it was gonna be fun, but it turned out it was not fun for a 9-year-old. So this is Hobson, who's going to be Data's first officer, and does a whole speech that we're going through now, like as a culture, where it's like, I don't think of androids as being somebody that can command. I don't think of Klingons as being people that can feel empathy. I don't think of, and he names like a third species being like, technically minded. They wouldn't make good engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, his attitudes are very antithetical to Starfleet, but they're very real workplace attitudes.
Oh, yeah.
And these are people that, that can advance, because he can say that matter-of-factly without like getting it. He was having what is now called a microaggression with Data.
Yes.
That term really didn't exist in 1991.
Oh, back then it was just called being passive aggressive.
Yes.
But Data kept the command. He told him, I understand how you feel, request denied. he shut him down. There is no empathy for how he felt, because in Data's world, there's no room for bias in a command structure.
So here's Sela getting everything.
Mm-hmm. In our Romulan attaché with her. So I'm a little confused here. How could Romulans even be on Kronos without holy hell erupting? Like, these guys could never go outside.
No, they couldn't. It's a planet, and they have transporters.
Okay.
And the Romulan ships are cloaked.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Hobson, by the way, our microaggression commander, is played by Timothy Carhart. Mm-hmm. So now they're trying to work out how are the Duras folks getting support. We destroyed their base. What's going on? And there's an excuse being said, and it was started by the Starfleet admiral who said maybe they're winning because of good leadership. Yeah. And so now he's being challenged in the Great Hall here, and he's like, okay,
this would happen every day. This is the thing. The way that Klingons are explained, it's like any issue would be, this is how you would settle it, is having, a guy comes in and be like, Galron, blah, 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 let's fight.
It's a very Lord of the Flies
to win. Yeah.
It's a Lord of the Flies approach. What I don't understand is that there are old and fat politicians. How do they not die? Like, who wins their knife fights for them?
They got guys for that.
Yeah, well, just like Worf stepped in, tried to break up the knife fight, and Gowron sticked him. Says, now the war can continue.
Obligatory appearance by Troy.
Oh, did she just walk across the bridge?
Yep.
I missed that. Oh, hey, look, it's Cole Meany on the bridge.
Yep, he gets to be the tactical guy. That would be so weird to do that. I wonder if that once Chief O'Brien at work, deviated from the mold of the story. I wonder if they had this story where it's like, "Hey, Chief, come work the tactical station on the bridge instead of running the transporters."
Well, if you're into canon, he's been tactical officer before on the Rutledge.
Yes, he's been and he was the helmsman on the first episode too.
And I think we did that episode already, right? So
yeah,
so we know he's got the skills to do it.
Yeah, it's the one with Bob Gunton.
So that leads me to believe, who would choose to be the transporter chief over a tactical officer in career development? One seems way more entertaining than the other.
Yep.
Oh, Data's pulling rank.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And
he's like, well, you did everything I would have done, but you need to ask me first.
And Data even forced him to undo what he did and then redo it, just to kind of demonstrate he's in charge.
Yeah, but that's how military situations work. What's funny, though, is that Data is so casual about this with his friends. He lets Wesley just call him Data when he's on the bridge. He let that woman that he dated for a minute didn't have to use any didn't have to use his rank when she spoke to him. But he's but again, he's got to establish himself as captain on this ship. So
yeah, just
didn't get to build a new set for Riker and Geordi. They're just somewhere you can't quite tell where they are.
There's our network. So Timothy Carhart was in, of all things, Ghostbusters and in Party Animal. So,
Party Animal.
Yeah. And he was just kind of a minor player in a lot of other movies. He was in Air Force One, interestingly enough. I didn't know that.
Air Force One.
Oh, that was terrible. And Hunt for Red October, Beverly Hill Cops 3. Huh. Hey, look at that. So I'm glad they brought back the Sela character.
Yeah.
Well, the actress, Denise. She was even trying to figure out how can I get back into that show, because she had a lot of fun playing in Yesterday's Enterprise, and there was a longing and a regret of her leaving the show. If I recall, she left because she wanted to work on her film career or something like that.
Yeah, she thought she was supposed, because she's the daughter or the granddaughter of Bing Crosby. She thought that she had kind of a family legacy and that she should have been bigger than she was. And she made Pet Cemetery, which would have been interesting to talk about. And she was on, in recent memory, she was on The Walking Dead.
There is some real hard-hitting television drama here. The person that they love is on an enemy ship. How could she get there? I'm glad they've got Dr. Crusher in there to talk about it. She had absolutely no role in the previous episode.
I know, to stand in the turbo lift. The transporter. Yeah.
I love how they barely explain the reason for her existence, and they just kind of take it at face value. She was from another reality, and I sent her there. Okay, I buy that. Moving on. What about the Klingons?
Yeah, what about the Klingons? The Klingons. What about the Klingons?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, Guinan. I noticed you were talking to like the other women on the crew, and I was kind of hoping I'd be invited.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I know stuff about things. I hope that they, in this next season of Picard, which she's going to be in, that they don't go too much into what her deal is. That they still keep it a mystery, because that's one of the most fun things about Guinan.
The more they define her past, the more the mystery is removed.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of went into that with the autobiography.
Yeah, they did.
And I didn't know how to feel about that. Actually, they made her seem more like an action figure, Captain Kirk-like woman in the autobiography.
That's who she's based on. She's based on Tex Guinan, who was this famous bartender.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So she's supposed to be, even though she's much more empathetic than Troy is, she's also supposed to be, the tough bartender who keeps a gun behind the bar. She does. We've seen her fire a phaser and pen forward to shut everybody up. But she's going to explain kind of what happened in yesterday's Enterprise to get Tasha Yar back there.
Oh, that's unfair for her to say.
That's not true.
So just for the listener, because the volume isn't very loud, is that because Guinan's implying that because Yar's daughter is on that ship and that Picard sent Yar in the past in another reality, it is his fault that the Civil War is happening. Which is that's a long stretch.
if I may, I'm going to take a dark turn with that. There was a science that still kind of exists, but was very popular 20, 30 years ago, where if you went to your therapist and said, I had a dream that my parent molested me, the therapist would say, oh, you couldn't have dreamed that if it didn't happen. And so there were people who like divorced their parents because a therapist told them that they were responsible for something that they have actually imagined.
Oh, ouch.
There's actually a whole town here in Washington State where that happened.
What?
Yes.
Which town was that?
I'll have to look it up, but basically, yeah, it was a mental health person had come in and interviewed a bunch of kids and basically convinced all of them that there was a pedophile ring in the town.
Oh man.
And a lot of people were arrested and went to prison, and then it was investigated by an actual investigator, and none of them had molested kids.
Oh wow. That's freaking crazy.
It's insane because like all these kids went into foster care, and it's really, really, really sad. Mm-hmm. I mean, like parent-child relationships that were never fixed. But this was in the late 80s. But in her universe, Picard is responsible. And that's what Guinan should have said, is like, as far as she's concerned, you're responsible.
Yeah.
And he can't say to her, no, your mother insisted that she go on the Enterprise C.
I think he's about as responsible as a butterfly is for a hurricane.
Yeah.
It's just happened to be there. It's, if anything, if we really wanted to break this down, this is Denise Crosby's fault. She's responsible because she came up with the idea of coming back and talked to the producers. And then they toyed the idea. And there's like, well, Yark couldn't have gotten pregnant with Castile. So what are we going to do? And so then they said she was taken prisoner by a Romulan general, which is all in the future here. So here we go. She's Sela's talking about her history to Picard, and Picard's got a poker face. He's basically saying, I don't care who your mother is, that will not have any bearing on what is happening now. Yep, there it is. Sent there by you from the future, which is now the past. If your head's not spinning, then there is something wrong with you.
They were all to have been executed after the interrogation. The Romulan generals saw her.
That's kind of a really messed up way. So you take a whole bunch of prisoners. So you're in the field of battle. You take a couple hundred prisoners, and you line them up to be executed, and you see one beautiful woman, and you go up to her and say, hey, if you hook up with me, I won't kill anybody. How messed up is that? How about just not killing them? But that's called sexual appropriation right there.
Yep.
Oh.
And but, you know, they play into this kind of situation with Major Kira. You know, having grown up in a world like this.
True. Actually, with the same intent that Sela's speaking right now, I could see Kira making a similar speech.
Yeah.
The only difference is that this is the evil person justifying the means rather than the hero terrorist justifying the means. But it's the same speech.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, my mother took advantage of my father, tried to kidnap me from my home, and she was executed for what she did, and she deserved it. Whereas Kira would be like, yeah, they totally captured my father, they tortured him to death while my mother was there, raped her right in front of me. That's why I had to kill this person. I mean, it's like, the energy is so in sync. The only difference.
So Worf has been kidnapped by the Duras sisters, and snuffling, and she's one of them's on him, snuffling and puffling and trying to get him excited. And
Well, I see you're
Like
going camping this morning.
Yeah.
Oh,
The same as you.
he
No honor.
is this the first time those have met? Those folks, the three of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But he knows them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had such a repulsive response like, "Oh, what do you want?"
Yeah.
One was to make you an enemy. We would rather be
Yeah. It's like they don't say how he made him an enemy. How like, oh yeah, he beat your wife to death.
Hmm.
He will be the leader of the council.
Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't care. The details don't matter.
So here they're making an offer saying that, Terrell's going to be the leader of the Empire. He needs a father figure. That could be you. Align yourself with us. Now, this tells me they did not do their homework to see what a great father Worf has been to Alexander. Maybe Worf should have taken them up and then the Empire would have just collapsed.
True.
Era for our people.
Era where honor has no meaning.
There we go. He calls
Let me
him
get
out.
up, please.
Kling-on's trademark.
Actually, no. Let me lay here for another couple of minutes. I'll let you know. Just back away. Don't keep
Please-
stroking my arm.
Please continue eating the egg out of my beard. Now, this is where I'm surprised Worf does not look surprised that
He
Yar
doesn't
is on
care.
a monitor.
It's like all blondes look the same to me.
I've seen it all, man. This does not bother me.
Yeah, I've seen everything.
Okay, so here we go. They are getting ready to throw the net. They're bringing Gowron up to speed, saying, "We want you to attack and create a huge demand for fresh supplies from the Romulans. Then we will try to catch the Romulans in the act." Now, the only way this could work is for Gowron to publicly acknowledge, saying, "Hey, look, Starfleet just uncovered that you're fighting for the Romulans." And that's the only way they can turn this war around, is basically change public opinion, saying, well, you're a traitor because you are fighting for someone who's supported by the Romulans.
Yep.
By the way, General Martok fought with Gowron at Mempa, so we know he's a good guy, even back in the day. Well, now some more strategery with Mr. Frakes. We haven't seen much from him either, Mr.
No.
Frakes.
Like I said in the last episode, there should have been some sit downs with him and Picard in that episode just to explain what Picard was thinking. But I guess since they didn't know how it was going to wrap up, they couldn't do that because they might have had, Picard might have written checks that the second half of the story couldn't cash.
Right.
I think that may be why he's so milquetoast about everything in that.
Huh.
You mean they were caught unprepared enough?
Apparently, Chris Hobson, the guy who plays our bigoted commander, was actually really good friends with Ronald Moore. I did not know that.
I thought Carhart played the bigoted commander. Oh,
the character's name was Carhart.
No, the character's name is Hobson. The actor's name is Carhart.
Yes. Wah, 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 wah. Chris Hobson. Slap me now, man. Chris Hobson was named for a longtime friend of Ronald D. Moore. Wah, 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 wah. And the Sutherland were named for Moore's brothers, Keith and Terry. Huh. All right. Wah, wah, wah.
Where do Keith and Terry fit into Sutherland?
I have no idea. Maybe it's a mashup. We figured
the Keith Terry or the Terry Keith.
right.
That makes sense for a ship name, Terry Keith. I thought his name came from Hobson's choice. Do you know what a Hobson's choice is?
No, what is the Hobson's choice?
No choice. It's no choice at all, really. It's like, it's having to choose between two options that are no good.
Do you want Coke or Pepsi?
Yeah.
But I'm a
Well, no.
diabetic.
Yeah.
Oh man! So they're opening up a hole in the net, and the Romulans are attacking that hole with their anti-proton beam or whatever it is, and Mr. O'Brien has some techno babble saying there's a disruption in the net. We push more buttons, and there it is. They've isolated Data.
It's so rare to see a blue shirt working at ops.
Was she?
Yeah, back behind
that.
them, there was a blue shirt working at the ops station.
Well, most of the senior staff are on these 12 of their ships, so they gotta pull in the beta crew.
Yeah, but blue is science and medical, which you would think you would see. The Enterprise does not have a science officer on their senior staff. There almost certainly are science officers on the Enterprise. There are in the Beta canon for sure. But yeah, just Picard's senior staff does not include any science officers.
So, interesting thing about the USS Sutherland, according to Ronald D. Moore, they were going to have the Sutherland regularly make appearances on Deep Space Nine. And they would maintain a complement of Hawaiian and Polynesian traditions and people.
Well, it's one of those things that they could do in Beta canon, but not on the actual show. But I would have liked to have seen more of Hobson.
Yes,
even though he's very much kind of a caricature of just like a jerk. I was gonna say his whole thing here, the way he talks to Data. Do you remember that show? I think it was called like "Oh, Thank God You're Here," where you would walk in, where like just like a random person would walk into a situation, and everybody would act like they were the person that could solve it.
Oh,
and then try to give them clues as to what was up, and for an audience. So it's kind of like he's talking to Data, like Data just showed up there and has no idea what he's doing. It's like, you can't push the Diggy-O. Diggy-O makes the boom boom.
All right, here we go. Data's getting the first test of command. The flagship has told him to proceed to a new set of coordinates, and Data is doing his own scientific analysis, and it's pissing off the crew. He just
will not respond, which is kind of crazy.
Well, he's got that creepy "I could kill everybody in the room" glare right now, where it's like,
I'm the biggest liability in the Federation.
Yeah, when Data gets that look, you want to make sure that he's on your side. If not, get out of the way. Next thing you know, they'll call a blue alert on the bridge, and they'll suck all the air out, and they'll lock the computer and warp to some other system and transport out of there.
Do it.
Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it, dude. Keith and Terry were the names of officers aboard the Sutherland. And those were the names of Morris brothers. It was bothering me that I misread that. And I'm just like, I need validation. I need to... Oh. Fire.
Yeah, this is the scene I'm talking about. He's like, what do you mean do that thing? You can't do that thing. Like you just walked in here off the street.
Oh, this is the best part. She's like, oh, the jig is up. We can't do anything now.
I guess she's not smarter than a Picard.
Oh, dear.
There was a show, Are You Smarter Than a Third Grader?
Are you smarter than a Romulan?
Yeah.
This guy that's talking to Sela, we've seen him before, but I can't put my finger on it.
That's a scary looking Data right there.
But you see, all of a sudden his gaze has changed. Now he's like, okay, start the decontamination protocols.
Yes, I'm glad that he finally, when he died, it involved him like just being out in space and jumping from one ship to another.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
now the Klingons can, bomb one of their own cities.
It's legit. It's war.
Yeah.
Well, I know that
That's
Klingons like war, but is it Klingon to bomb an entire city of your own species?
We do it. We do it here on Earth all the time.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
That's depressing.
Yeah. That's the thing, is all those people that complain on Discovery that's like, Klingons don't look like that. It's like, it's a planet. We've seen like maybe 2% of Kronos.
Maybe less than
There
that.
are other Klingons that live there that don't look like that.
Now, how would you like to be the sole Klingon on Kronos? Like, I don't even think they'd give him a trial. They're just like, yeah, kill this guy.
Well, that's not quite what happens, but thanks to Worf, and that's only thanks to Worf and Picard, only to the intervention of Starfleet, which there plants a seed. It's like, well, I'm alive because Starfleet intervened. Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I eat you. You ever hear of me? I'm Tony Todd. The Toniest Todd there is.
It is with a profound sense of relief that I have ordered the fleet back.
So, yes, no, we've only seen that Romulan once, which is interesting. I thought we'd have way more of him. He carries himself very well. He plays the part of the conniving politician,
Yes,
the politician and military officer Romulan.
I wish to submit myself to disciplinary action. I have disobeyed.
So Data
Oh.
I messed up. Picard's like, yeah, you did, but
Data tells on
worked
himself. Data tells on himself way too many times.
well, Picard already knew what he had done. It's not.
Yeah.
Blame I was following orders.
So on the flip side, this speech could have gone a completely different way. So he's giving the "if I was just following orders" speech as a way to justify the circumstances. And yes, it could have been a tragedy and it was avoided. But another speech he could have given was, you took a leadership role and you made a judgment call and it paid off because you followed your intuition. Like, that could have been a huge compliment to Data's skills to take subjective information and turn it into fact and win the day. That's good.
Well, he did a little bit. He did a little bit. He was like, yeah, you made a choice and it paid off, and well done.
What if it hadn't, though? Oh man.
Yeah.
Then we would have had Redemption Part 3.
The redemption of Mr. Data.
The delayed execution of
One last matter to attend to. Kill this child.
Well, you know what you said. You remember what you said. If we ever caught somebody who talked, we'd have to take his balls. I just didn't think it would be you, sir.
He's probably been. Well, no, he's walking all normal. I would think they would have beat him up in prison real good. Because he would be the guy that was there, who's the reason that people had to fight in a civil war.
Well, I would think that the Klingons kind of have the colonial approach to prisoners of war. So execute or imprison the crew, and segregate the senior staff, and then treat the senior officer like an officer, even though they're captured. Because you as the guy in charge will want to talk to and have the pleasure of executing the enemy leader yourself. So it's kind of like, you can't touch him. We're saving him for Gowron.
I just caught that, like, Gowron's got medals on from the battle, and so does Worf have some. Picard's all like, oh no, what's he gonna do?
I'm really surprised that this young Klingon is a little scared. He's kind of acting like, I'm not ready to die. That's not Klingon at all. If anything, he should have been really like, do it, man. I'm dying for my beliefs.
Yep.
I'm going to go to heaven. And no, Worf just dishonors him. It's like,
all who fought for me will find honor in Stovacor.
Exactly.
No.
This is the endless drumbeat of Worf doesn't want to kill people when he's told to, or when tradition tells him to, but he loves killing people when it's on his terms.
He does. They're in the beta canon. They have a interim first officer while Riker is missing, and he gives Worf a kill order a couple of times, and Worf is just thrilled by it. Like, yes, sir.
I think this Worf, compared to the DS9 Worf, is less angry, more touchy-feely. He's compassionate. Yeah. The DS9 Worf is like, at the first sign of betrayal, I will kill him. It's like, forget the brig, forget impressing Picard. It's just like, I'm gonna be.
Well, geez, he's got that terrible scene in First Contact where he's like, it tells Picard if you were another man, I would kill you where you stand.
Yeah. Oh boy, that was fun. There was so much to talk about. We just didn't get there. We could have gone way into the whole, is Data a competent sentient being who can command?
Well, we'll have plenty more time to do that in this 5th season.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy we're still here. I give this episode, I think I gave the last one 3.5. I'll give this one 4 because it is a little bit better. It's a little bit tighter. I would have actually liked a part 3. I would have liked part 2 to have been just war stuff, just war games, and then do more wrap up in part 3.
Huh. Okay. Well, technically, this
one that's action fighting in one, political in the other.
Technically speaking, this is part of a Klingon politics trilogy because the first one was with Kempek.
Yeah.
And it just took them a season or two to finish it off. So, yeah. I don't know. I like it. This is a good, if it was on television, I'd watch it. I enjoy learning more about the Klingons. I continue to say that with every Klingon episode, they add a little bit more to canon, and they paint themselves into a corner that's difficult to back out of, but it's a very rich history that they've written for the Klingons and for Worf. And if anything, they just kind of make Worf look more like the political tool than the self-actualized warrior that he is. I don't know. For that, I would have to give this episode probably a 4 out of 5 spared Klingon rebels, I guess.
Yeah. So it'll be more than a minute before I ever watch this one again.
Oh yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Because I watched it once this morning, and again to record this, and then earlier in the month when we thought we were going to record it, and then life intervened. So
yes,
I'm worn out on it. I'm ready to get into some flowery poetry and
poetry
and a Bajoran ensign. So
oh my gosh, so flowery poetry, that is alluding to Darmok and the captain and the captain. Yep, I think the captain has a cool new jacket.
Yep,
and then we
got when the walls fell.
Okay, well, I think that just about wraps it up, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks, folks, for listening on, and you have a wonderful day. Music provided by lofigirl.com. Artists include Tenno, Daydreaming, BVG and Mondberg, Insomnia, WYS, Snowman, Bcalm and Banks, Because. Episode cover art created by Matthew Kirshner. Podcast logo and main cover art provided by David Clawwitter. Audio engineering done by Sascha Schaudies.